Welcome back to the How You Breathe is How You Live podcast. I'm Jake Parent, your host, and I'm joined today by Josh and Riley. Most people who come to breathwork come because something isn't working in their life. They're stressed, they're stuck, they're tired of white-knuckling their way through life, or they feel a lack of sense of fulfillment. And breathwork helps, and it helps quickly, and it's reliable. And we've spent 3 episodes explaining why it is so quick and reliable. But that's not the whole story. Because the people who stay, the ones who keep showing up month after month, they're not still coming because something isn't working. They're coming because something is. That they've discovered that the same practice that helped them survive is now helping them build. And there's a difference. This is episode 4. The last in our series on the unusual effectiveness on breathwork, and this one is about what's on the other side of capacity. What happens when the nervous system isn't in crisis mode anymore? What becomes possible when you're not just managing your life, but actually living it? Riley's going to open us up with a word that came after a session. It's a word we'll be returning to all episode. How you breathe is how you live. Let's get into it.
And in Breathworks that night, it was a great night for me, and the word that came to mind was fortitude. And we discussed briefly after class about how equanimity is better described as a combination of emotional resilience and emotional fortitude. Fortitude meaning how quickly is the burn, like how quickly do you depart from your center, and resilience meaning how quickly do you return.
Yes. And we'll be talking about durability today, which is also another word for fortitude.
Okay. Yeah.
Like how durable are you?
Yeah, that's you've mentioned equanimity several times before, and it's just been this slow burn concept in my head for a while. And so that conversation really helped it bring it together and like solidify the understanding for me. So I wanted to mention that.
What are the level of complications of life does it take to push you off of center, that you can experience life and go, yep, this is not an ideal outcome, this is not an ideal scenario, but I am still centered.
Right.
And that I think a lot of that is how slowly do your emotions transition.
Good job.
Welcome back to How You Breathe is How You Live. I'm Jake Parent, joined as always by Josh and Riley. This is part 4 of our series, The Unusual Effectiveness of Breathwork. And this is the one that ties it all together. We've come a long way in this series. In episode 1, we introduced the core idea that breathwork works from the bottom up, not the top down. That instead of white-knuckling your way through life with willpower and strategy, that breathwork gives you something more fundamental. It gives you capacity or the ability, and the ability to handle what's in front of you without falling apart. In episode 2, we went inside the machine. We looked at the breath operating system, the Bohr effect, the chemistry of CO2 in your blood, the way your pH shifts can quiet the ego's frantic inner PR rep and move you from a 9 out of 10 emotional trigger to something that you can actually work with. And we talked about white-knuckling the oars and learning to let go of. In episode 3, we went deeper still into consciousness itself. We broke down what it actually means to be unaware, then truly conscious. We looked at the mechanics of breath, the rate, the depth, the body focus, the rhythm, the airway, and how each one is a lever. Don't try to grab all of them at once, but turn one at a time, slowly teaching the system what's possible. Today is the payoff. Because of all of that, the capacity, the chemistry, the consciousness, that isn't the destination, it's the foundation. And what the foundation is for a life of flourishing and elegance. Why is breathwork unusually effective? And what do we mean by that? Because just having a weird experience that you don't expect from just breathing doesn't equal effectiveness. In the spiritual community, people like to say things like, unblock your chakras, raise your vibration, good vibes only, activate your DNA, open your third eye. People here aren't allowed to say any of those things, at least not if they're a facilitator. If you come here as a client, you'd like to say those things, you're welcome to. But as a facilitator who is guiding, all of those things are functionally worthless. And the scientific community isn't much better. They'll say things like lower your cortisol, hack your dopamine, avoid the amygdala hijack. Both of these have the same problem. They're describing symptoms and not the causes. They're telling you what you want to move, but not giving you a hand on the lever. Breathwork is the lever. What I mean by that, if someone says hack your dopamine, there is no dopamine button that you're aware of.
True.
Like, hey, I'm doing this for a dopamine hit. 90% of the people, if I ask, what is dopamine? What is the difference between dopamine and serotonin? It doesn't mean anything. It's a shibboleth.
I have some pretty effective shortcuts for dopamine in my life.
Correct. But if you never knew what the word dopamine was, all of those activities still need to be modulated. That you have to change activities in your life, and saying that it's a dopamine effect is functionally worthless. Telling you about the Krebs cycle when you're lifting weights for building muscle is not very useful.
Lift more.
Correct.
That's a lever. Yeah. Pick it up, put it down.
Put it down.
Do it a few more times. Put more weight on, do it again.
That's functional. So breath work is an actual lever. It's something that you can actually do. And I'm saying the word actually not sarcastically for once. Actually, you can do breath work. It's a button you can push to get a result right now, not after 6 months of therapy, not after a retreat you're planning to go to someday, not after years of meditating. Now, first time, every time, right out of the box, it's a lever that moves things in your life. And being immediate, it creates a feedback loop because there isn't a lag between did the thing that I did get the result. So it does something that most transformation tools can't. It builds trust. And the trust that we're talking about is a trust in yourself. The moment you discover that you can change your mood for days at a time, that you did it, your own body responded, something shifted, you stop being a passenger in your own nervous system. You learn, I can do this. And that's the first move in a very long game. And it's different from being told you can do it. That you can hear, you can do it 1,000 times, but one breathwork session gives more proof than 1,000 repetitions of the idea. Feelings come first, understanding follows after. Here's what makes breathwork structurally unusual compared to almost everything else. Most approaches to change go insight, effort, behavior change. You understand something about yourself, you try harder, you behave differently for a while. The problem with that model is that it runs on willpower, and willpower is finite and limited. It's like a gas tank. There's only so much of it. Complications are going to arise, life happens, and then you run out of that willpower. Breathwork goes in a different direction. It starts with your state or your mood, which creates your feeling, which then creates a release. You don't convince your mind to behave differently because you've changed your state or your mood that the mind is operating from, that when your mood changes, behavior follows. Not because you decided it was, but because it can't not. I think we've all had the experience where you just wake up one day, for no particular reason, you're in a good mood, and it turns out the rest of the world is a much better place because you're magically in a better mood that day. Everybody is more charming, they greet you warmer, and things just seem to work out. You guys are looking at me like this doesn't happen for you.
No, I'm thinking of the counterexample where I wake up kind of cranky and then everyone's kind of a dick.
Yeah, that also happens.
Yeah.
I have taken note of my morning walks in the park, which there's a standard crew of people that also walk the park every morning. And when I'm in a great mood, everybody's happy to see me. And when I'm a cranky pants,
Hi, good morning.
Yeah, I won't even have to say anything. I'm in my own little world. And they're like, hey, how you doing? Great to see you, blah, blah, blah. And when I'm in a cranky mood, people aren't so pleasant.
Yeah, when my project's not going well, suddenly the world is full of jerks.
Yes. The world didn't change. We did. So it's the difference. Were you going to say something?
I was telling someone about that the other day. Usually, like something like the grocery store is like the very people-y place. I usually just am in and do what I got to do and get out. And like a couple weeks ago, I just was feeling great. I don't know, like it was just a good day. The sun was shining. It was beautiful. Like I was just in a really good mood, and everyone was like looking at me and smiling and like making way more eye contact than normal. And it just it to the point that like it happened so many times that I noticed it. So yeah, to your point.
Do you ever wonder, are these people always doing this? And I'm just such a miserable
No,
I don't
cranky
think they
pants
do.
that
I don't think they do. Like I genuinely,
it's just mirror neurons at full.
I make eye contact
capacity.
with people just because I'm looking at them usually, but people don't look at me.
I used to do this experiment with facilitators that I was training about how your energy changes the world. And I would go to grocery stores and we would walk around and everything would be normal. And I'd go, all right, I'm going to turn my positivity up to the max. I'm just going to go internally as positive as I can possibly be. And they're like, okay. I go, nothing's going to change on the outside, but on the inside, it's not like I'm going to just smile in and start doing the Leo DiCaprio happy walk.
Great gift.
Yeah. So
On the inside, I've got unicorns and rainbows. Just
correct. The outside, I'm going to say, stay calm. And the thing that would happen is that people who were committed to their negativity would start to come down an aisle, get close to us, turn around and go the other way.
You repelled them.
It literally repels negative people.
interesting.
Ah.
And I'm like, I've done this enough times that I know I can just now do this in public and go, hey, watch this. I'll get rid of the negative people.
I have two things related to the topic. One is a genuine question, not a California question. And the other is
Yet
a
to be
personal anecdote. So the real question, real question is, what do you think of the willpower measurement studies? I vaguely remember there's all this stuff about willpower being like a gas tank and it going down, but then there was a bunch of stuff that I think people tried to replicate that and it didn't replicate. Genuinely, what are your thoughts on both sides of that?
In scientific terms, what they're measuring there is scientifically it's called ego depletion.
Yeah. Okay.
That is
yeah.
the scientific term that they're using when they do the psychological studies. And the way that you know ego depletion is real is when you are watching a reality show and you see somebody crashing out on a reality TV show and just behaving extremely obnoxiously. And you're like, do these people not know there's a cameraman right there filming this? And it's like, yes, they do. And when a cameraman is with you 24/7, you can only be on first date good behavior for so long. And then eventually that good behavior is going to ego deplete you to the point that you're going to revert to your natural status. Whatever your baseline is, you're going to return to that. And that ego depletion state is now the authentic you is going to show up because that ego has been depleted and that willpower is insufficient for the task anymore.
Okay. So what do you think? Do you have any thoughts on the failure to replicate or the refuting of the original willpower ego depletion studies?
One of the problems with a lot of psychology studies is the temperament of the person administering the tests. And what I mean by that is a lot of things that we see temperamentally, like we just talked about. Hey, if you're in a positive mood, this works well. If you're in a negative mood, this doesn't work well. And in science, in hard sciences, which I do not consider psychology a hard science, it's a very soft, mealy mouth. That's not a science. In hard sciences, what you are doing is dissecting. And dissecting means you are taking a thing that is whole and moving it into parts to figure out why the pattern emerges from this. And emergent behavior is always greater than the sum of the parts, as is our psychology. So when you begin to dissect it, there are 1 and 1 doesn't equal 2. It's like 1 and 1 equals 8. And we have no idea why. I can't remember the study. I can't remember the particular study, but there was a study that was done with foster children. And somebody had come out with this program that was having phenomenal results with foster children. And they said, hey, we have to study this. And they went and did the study, and the study completely and absolutely, totally failed. And why did it fail? Because whatever prescription that they were giving to the children in the first place, they had a positive outlook for the person that they were giving services to. And when they were doing the study, they were doing it from a combative, I want to prove this is wrong. They were crappy to the kids and it didn't work. So it wasn't the thing itself that didn't work. It was the affect of the person who was administering the test. In therapy, there are all these different, we've talked a little bit about cognitive behavioral therapy. There's Jungian therapy. There's all these different types of therapy. And it's like, well, which one is best? The one that is best is which one gives the therapist the highest positive feelings towards their client. That is the number one indicator of success. Not the therapy itself, not the words that are said, not the aspects that you take. It is, does the therapist hold the client in positive regard?
Yeah, it seems
everything else is secondary.
It seems with these kinds of studies, there are so many variables that are either impossible to measure or control, and they can have so much influence, just the predisposition of the researchers or the people that are administering the whatever the thing is. It doesn't, a laboratory with beakers of these bacteria were treated with this drug versus the same bacteria with this other drug. You don't have the same AB conditions in the span of our psychology. And the thing we talked about last week, or 2 weeks ago, the 5, 7, 9, 11 second inhale, exhale. So every morning, the first two things that I do a 10-minute guided meditation and then about 10 minutes of just some kind of breath work, and I mix it up. And I tend to do like a Wim Hof style thing where I'll do some kind of heavy breathing and then hold my breath, or I'll do box breathing or long extended things. But recently I switched it up to do the long inhale, exhale. And of course, being me and competitive and measured about things, I jumped right into, I finished my meditation and would very quickly go to a 9-second inhale, exhale, and then try to get to the 11 to prove some point to nobody who cares. And I was a little annoyed by a thing that went wrong yesterday and the day before. And so this morning I let myself off the hook of, I'm not going to jump in and prove this. I'm just going to breathe to whatever. I'm just going to check this box that I did my breath work, and then I'm going to go back to being irritated. And so I did it. I went 5 in, 5 out until I felt myself calm down, and then went 7 in, 7 out, 9 in, 9 out. And just starting slow and letting myself off the hook, I felt myself downregulate. And the problem that was annoying me, that I was like, I'm going to do this breath work, just rush through it so that I can go back to being annoyed. By the time I got to the 9 seconds, I couldn't even remember what I was annoyed about. And I was like, that's weird how that worked.
That's amazing.
I kind of backed my way into that one.
So it turns out if you're doing breath work competitively, it's not quite as effective.
Yeah, it's not. And it's not even like I'm doing it competitively.
My Zen school is going to out-Zen your Zen school.
But it is, because I've done Wim Hof for years, and when I'm stressed out or I don't sleep well enough or any number of variety of things, the length of the breath hold that I can do or how long I can be comfortable holding it is kind of a mirror as to, am I rested enough? Have I been training too much? And so naturally there's I would like to be better rested. And so I do get a little obsessive about the feedback. And so it's not that it's competitive. It's just, I tend to optimize the number a little too much. And then it's, what is it? Goodhart's law that as soon as you make a measure, a performance indicator, it ceases to be a good performance indicator.
Yes.
That's kind of what I experienced. But the point being that simple 5 in, 5 out for a minute or two, then 7 and 7 for another minute or two, then 9, down regulated my nervous system in a way that I was very pleasantly surprised by. And so, I mean, there was literally 5 minutes of breathing slowly. And I was like, I literally forgot what I was so annoyed about.
I've heard several experiences about people like that in breath work where they go, I am so calm, I am thinking about the thing that annoys me or stresses me out or gives me anxiety, and I can't generate any stress around it or any anxiety or any worry. This is troubling.
Yeah, it's a super weird feeling.
But to your point on the measuring, when I did CrossFit for about 2 years, and I would say the last 2 years I did CrossFit.
Well, you did it for 2 years, or
I did it for 10 years.
10 years, okay.
I did CrossFit for about 10 years. And the last 2 years I did CrossFit, I didn't measure any of my workouts. I didn't time them. I just stopped timing them and just did them at a pace that I felt comfortable with that was still pushing me without redlining it. And then maybe once a month, once every 6 weeks, I'd do one workout that was timed just as a measure of progress. But on the day-to-day, I was like, I'm just doing the thing to do the thing. And the daily metric isn't really going to change that much.
And
it was phenomenal. I had less injuries.
Yeah. I
think overall I was healthier. Breathwork is the difference between rowing the boat and setting sail. And here's the piece that took me a long time to understand. Breathwork doesn't ask you to fight your patterns or to change your habits. It gives you a way to move beneath them. That your patterns are built on protection, that they're not irrational. They made sense at some point in your life, and your nervous system learned something early on that if I feel this way, I'm not safe. And it's been running that program ever since to try and keep you safe. So breathwork doesn't use force on your habits. It changes the conditions under which the habit and the patterns run. And when the system no longer needs to protect itself from a threat that isn't there anymore, it no longer needs that pattern or that habit. So once the pattern dissolves, not because you forced it out, but because the reason for it is gone, that the structure underneath it changes and the behavior on top falls away naturally. Which leads us to, what are you building when you do breath work consistently? The first thing is what we've been calling capacity, our ability, our space, our resilience, our durability. That if we go back to the example of the money in a flat tire, if your account is near zero and you get a flat tire, that's a crisis. If you get a flat tire and you have plenty of money, it's a minor inconvenience, that it's the same tire, but a different capacity to deal with it, that you have a different ability, a different space, that the event itself doesn't change, just your ability of how you handle it and how you look at it changes. And that's what consistent breathwork builds. Not the absence of problems, not some enlightened state where nothing bothers you, but a wider window, a deeper reserve, a larger account to draw from when life gets complicated. And life is going to get complicated. And as you become more skillful, life presents better complications and problems.
That's an interesting use of the word better.
Correct.
I just want to comment really quick, going back to, you were talking about how the number one determining factor for the success of cognitive behavioral therapy is
any therapy,
any talk therapy. Yeah. You were talking about how the number one determining factor is that the therapists themselves have a good outlook.
They have a positive
client.
Regard for the client.
Yes,
that was the technical term. Yeah.
A positive regard for the client. And that is astonishing to me, because I would very quickly assume that the number one determining factor would be the client's willingness to engage and participate.
You will measure up to the expectations that people give you. That when you have a leader, when you have a manager, when you have somebody in your life who has positive regard for you, no matter what you think of yourself, you will eventually perform to that standard.
Yeah, just
good managers think well of their people, and then their people rise to that. You know, it's one of the things that they used to do in the SEAL teams is that, you have a patrol. Patrol's a smaller unit of people, 5 to 8 guys, and that you'll have different patrol leaders, and they'll swap the leaders and take like the lowest performing team and the highest performing team, swap the patrol leaders, and then the performances will match accordingly. That the leadership and how leadership views you matters almost more than how you view yourself. That I will just keep pouring positive regard on you until you perform as such.
You might also have a measurement problem where it's a lot harder to measure the internal state of the clients consistently,
Mhm.
whereas what the
Very
the
true.
one therapist reports as their regard or their positive or negative regard for
Mhm.
clients might be a little bit.
I'm
consistent.
assuming both of you have read Anthony DeMello's Awareness,
Yes.
Most of it.
and he had a client that he was having difficulty with, and he brought a recording of the session to another group of therapists, and they all said, "You don't like the client." He was like, "I like the client," and then he listened to the tape, and he was like, "I don't
like the client.
I don't like it.
I don't like the client.
I do remember that.
She's not coming back. No, she's not going to come back. You don't like her."
And there's a comparable thing with, and it's so obvious when you say it, but the most and only predictive feature in diet outcome success is adherence.
Yes.
Do you adhere to the diet is the only thing that matters, and it matters a lot.
Compliance.
Compliance.
Yes.
It's all there is.
So what you were saying earlier about like better problems, that I call them better problems.
It's a very interesting use of the word better, yes.
As a quasi-rich white guy, I have quasi-rich white guy problems. Nobody wants to hear about my problems. Like when you have first world problems, nobody feels sorry for you anymore. Like, oh, quick story. One of the billionaires I
I
worked.
can't keep my Ferrari clean.
Correct. The billionaire I worked for, we were sitting there one day at the office, and he takes a call, and he's like, yeah, I'm sure I do. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I don't know where it's at. Why don't you ask the insurance agent? I own a white Porsche 911 somewhere. Ask the insurance agent. Oh, that's who is asking me where it's at? Oh, I don't know where it is. Why don't you call the assistants at the different houses and ask them? Have them go out to the garage and see if there's a white Porsche in the garage.
Yeah.
So that's the problems I'm looking for in life. Like, hey, I misplaced my Porsche.
Oh, man. Wouldn't we all be so lucky? I misplaced my Porsche. That has a different ring to it when you say it like that.
So the
Well-
goal of life isn't to be free of problems, because it's not even possible. And honestly, none of us want that people who run out of problems don't become happy. They become restless. And Josh and I are not great people to be around when we become restless.
Indeed.
Nobody likes that. That you are a pattern matching, problem solving machine. That is what your brain does. That's not a bug. That's the feature. It's not a flaw. It's literally the design of your brain. So the question isn't whether you'll have problems. The question is what kind. And when you're in the survival mode, the flat tire is a crisis. When problems are low level, how do I get through this week? How do I not explode at this person who's pushing my buttons? How do I stop eating all the Oreos? These problems are exhausting because you're running them at maximum effort with minimal capacity, that you're white knuckling using willpower, brute force, solutions with low payoff, that it's all squeezed with no juice. But as your capacity or your ability grows and your skills develop, the problems don't disappear, they upgrade. You stop running survival patterns and start running curiosity patterns. That you start asking different questions. And instead of, how do I not lose my cool? I'm a donkey on the edge. You're
Was not expecting a Shrek quote out of nowhere. I'm a donkey on the edge.
I got layers.
Okay, so sorry. Keep going. That caught me off guard.
There's been 3 other laugh lines that I've gotten like nothing from you. I'm like, surely I thought I'd get something. So I'm like, this one's not gonna land either.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I got one job.
Instead of asking, how do I not lose my cool here? You're asking, what is actually possible here? Instead of, how do I tolerate this person? You're asking, what would a genuine relationship with this person look like? The problems become more interesting. And importantly, you'll have the skill to meet them, or you'll have the ability to develop the skills to meet them. And because of that, the payoffs get bigger and better.
That makes the usage of the word better make a lot more sense.
You're welcome.
Wait, what did you think the word better meant?
No, just the way in which it was structured into the sentence when he said that, your life will offer you better problems, I found amusing.
You're going to upgrade your problems.
With upgraded problems come upgraded solutions.
That like, I can't find my Porsche is a good problem to
Good
have.
problem. Yeah.
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 You know, it's one of those things that you do business long enough and you're going to lose money. And then eventually you're going to lose a lot of money. And talking to a friend one time where I had a deal go sideways and lost 300 grand. It's like, hey, congrats. You're in a place in life where you can lose 300 grand and nothing changes. Let's go. Get some tacos.
That's a beautiful reframe. Holy cow. Yeah.
I highly recommend not losing 300 grand.
Doesn't sound like a great hobby. or
1
activity.
star.
1 star. One
Do
star.
not recommend.
Do not recommend.
It's the, like when you have a bad health problem, you go from having a bunch of problems to only one problem.
Correct.
And then when hopefully that thing gets better, if you have the self-awareness to realize that you're really grateful to have a bunch of pretty trivial problems that are not that one big health problem, all of a sudden, those are better problems to have than the health thing.
Yeah, growing up, my dad always used to say, if you've got money problems, you don't have real problems. Hey, if you've got a cancer problem, that's a real problem. If you've got a money problem, do you need to throw some money at it? Do you need to earn some money? Like, what do we got to do here? That's not a real problem.
That's an interesting frame. A long time ago, Alex Hormozy had a line that money solves money problems. So like use your money to solve money problems, but be aware that most of the problems that are real problems are not money problems.
Correct.
It's like money's not going to fix my relationship with my dad. It's not going to cure my cancer.
It solves a lot of time problems. One of the things that I've been thinking about with breath work is what Jim Collins calls the flywheel. And I love the flywheel that is about, the flywheel is about creating momentum in your life, that as things go well and you build momentum, more things are going well, and it creates this upward spiral of success. And it starts with a single thing, which is your intention. What is it that you actually want in life? Not the fantasy version where everything is easy and nothing costs anything, but what is the life that you want to be building towards? And who do you need to be to live that life? Because that's what an intention is. Who do I have to be? How do I need to show up so that I can live the life that I say I want to live? And that's the intention that you set. And then you breathe. And that breath work creates space, not a metaphorical space, that it creates literal space in your nervous system, that it creates that capacity or that ability that when we're talking about space, we're talking about that ability to do things. The room to feel things without being overwhelmed by them, to notice your patterns rather than being triggered by them. And in that space, in that gaps, that's where the real work and growth happens. Because in that space, you can feel. And feeling is not weakness. Feeling is awesome. Everything in your life that is incredible is because of a feeling that you've had. Being numb is what sucks. And it's that awareness, it's the nervous system's intelligence, and it's the body's way of knowing things that the mind hasn't yet processed. That's what your feelings are. And we like to call that intuition, that it's knowing without knowing. And when you stop avoiding feelings and start moving towards them, things start to open up with you. Life begins to open up, that you heal, you develop, you grow, you get stronger, not just emotionally, but in how you see yourself. And when you see yourself differently, you start making different choices. And because of that, your identity shifts. So the identity is the first, that is like top level things that shift. And once your identity shifts, then your mindset follows. And then the world starts to look different because you're looking at the world from a different viewpoint. The world hasn't changed. You've changed. The way that you're looking at the world has changed. And from that different vantage point, things that were invisible become visible. Previous blind spots become seen. Things that felt impossible to begin to feel like a natural next step. And that's when the flywheel starts clicking over. That breath work creates mastery, which leads to durability, which leads to flourishing, and then back to deeper curiosity, because each cycle builds on the last and it compounds. So this is what I mean by a life of elegance, that it's not a life without difficulty. It's a life where the difficulty is meaningful, where the problems are interesting, where you have the skill and the capacity and the self-awareness to meet what's in front of you and to want to go further.
I have a good recent story.
Let's hear
So this one will resonate you as a woodworker. But this is a kind of a breathwork thing or breathwork inspired thing, but you can spin it a little bit, obviously. So I'm working on the Hape boxes and doing the box joints on them. You got to cut a few of them, flip a thing, figure out exactly which things need to be where. And because of the way that I set it up, the front is a half inch shorter than the other pieces, so the lid can slide on nicely. And because of that, and the way that I have the other cuts lined up so that things don't look weird, it's not just like a do them all the same way and it'll work out. You kind of have to pay attention. And so I did one set and it was very cognitively demanding. Like I'm looking at it, I'm trying to line it up, and I'm just feeling myself get exhausted. And I'm looking at the pile of 7 more to do. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to have gas in the tank to do all that in the next hour before I plan to go to bed. And I realized, I paused and thought, is there a way to do this that's less demanding? And there was, in fact, which is once I figured out, did the decision thing of, okay, I need to line this piece up this way to do the first cut. I just did the rest of them. I did the first cut on all those pieces. And then I moved on to the next thing, which was I'm going to pay attention one time, figure out what I need to do, and then make that first cut on all those pieces. So I had to, quote, figure out the thing that took attention like 4 times. And then once that first little box joint was cut, everything else was simple. I just, kept moving it and cutting it and being careful with, not cut my fingers off or anything. But it went from I have to drudge my way through paying attention carefully to not screw this up and get it right every single time. And there's no way I'm going to finish this in the next hour and a half to, oh, this is actually not that bad. And I'm done early. And I'm going to do one more thing. And then I'm going to go to bed. And this is actually really great. And had I still been in that restless, I must work hard and make myself suffer because the artist must bleed mode, I probably would have screwed several of them up. I only screwed one of them up. But it kind of reminded me of doing breath work where it doesn't have to be so hard. And there may be better words for that, but that's kind of how that felt.
I like to refer to that as the path of least resistance.
I like the path of medium resistance.
Eli Whitney and Henry Ford would both be proud of you for discovering manufacturing.
Right?
We've been saying this since episode 1. How you breathe is how you live. And I want to take a closer look at what that means, not as a slogan, but as an operating principle. We've kind of covered it in the other episodes. But your breath is always communicating what is going on with you. That shallow breath reflects guardedness, held breath reflects suppression, chaotic breathing reflects reactivity, open, full breathing reflects groundedness. And it's not just reflecting, it's also reinforcing. And you can use your breath to direct your emotions and your energy. Your breath is shaped by your history, your conditioning, the emotional experiences that become patterns that become your identity. And over time, that pattern runs on autopilot. So when you take your breath off of autopilot and decide to change that pattern, and when you change the pattern shows up in a better version of the person. And that's progression. It doesn't happen in just doing breath work one time, though one session can create a big shift. And in those shifts, it comes in waves. That stage 1 is healing, that you release, the nervous system calms, the triggers start to lose their grip in life, things that hurt you or were painful before are no longer painful, and life becomes manageable. Stage 2 is self-awareness. You start to see patterns clearly, not just in breathwork sessions, but in your life, that the observer begins to emerge. You start catching yourself in the middle of annoyances and irritations and making a different choice. The space we keep talking about becomes a space you actually live in, that it is the lived space of awareness. And eventually in stage 3, you begin to develop self-actualization or fulfillment. This is where your energy comes online that you didn't know you had. Creativity returns. Purpose starts to clarify. Expression becomes natural. You're not fixing and repairing and even self-helping anymore. You're becoming more of what's possible without the grind and the hustle. that you begin to shift from survival to design, from survive to thrive. And you stop being a byproduct of your patterns and start being the author of your life. And it's simple. I don't say it's easy, because feeling is the doorway that most people spend their lives avoiding, but it is simple, that you set an intention, you breathe, you feel, and then you transform. Set the intention. What does success look like for you? Not someone else's version. What is your version of success for your life? And then breathe. Create the space, build the capacity, and then feel. Let the awareness come, let it heal, develop, grow, and strengthen, and then let it transform you. That the transforming effect is going to be the growth that takes place, that your identity is going to shift, your mindset is going to be altered. The way that you see the world and your dominant mood is going to change as well. And from there, clarity is going to emerge. That your relationships don't get fixed. You improve, and that alters the interaction that you have with other people. That your wealth, your health, the things that you actually want in life, they become accessible in a different way. Not by forcing them, but by becoming someone who they're a natural next step. So where do people go from here? The same place we go every night.
Yeah, I had that
The
question.
plan to take over the world.
Narf.
Narf.
There's a bit of a Chinese finger trap here, and it ties to my experience of, I'm going to breathe for 9 seconds in and out, and white knuckling it, and nothing happened. And then I said, I don't care. And then it worked. And I'm like 8 years into this, and I still don't know that's a thing. I still make the dumb, no, I'm just going to pull my fingers harder and hope the finger trap magically disengages, and it doesn't. And then I remember, so for someone who has not experienced relaxing and letting go and things working, how would you, continue? You were about to say what you were going to say. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, that is the thing.
And then it's going to be my idea.
that thinking harder is not going to create relaxation any more than reading a book about massage is not going to allow your muscles to relax. That analytical thought, analytical reasoning, taking on more information isn't going to create a shift. That the only way that you create a shift is by turning inward. And we do that through breath work. I mean, breath work is not the only modality or methodology that'll do this for you, but it's the most reliable one that I've found. So this is a practice. One session can create a breakthrough, but repetition is what creates a new baseline experience for your reality. And this is where a lot of people misunderstand transformation, that they start chasing peak experiences. Hey, I want to do ayahuasca, I want to do mushrooms, I want to have this peak experience, I want to have this mystical experience, the 1,000-yard stare or sailing through the universe on the back of a narwhal whale. And those things are awesome, but it's not going to change your baseline experience of life. It's not the peak that changes your life. Setting a PR doesn't change your baseline fitness. It's the everyday repetition at 80%, that it's the continual practice of the boring thing. That over time, what once felt like effort becomes who you are. And we're here every week because how you breathe is how you live. And I believe that. And I believe it's worth exploring together boldly in a way that's honest and useful and hopefully occasionally funny, more often than my jokes were today for Riley.
Aw.
Occasionally. Allegedly. As we close out the episode today, that breath work isn't about becoming some better performing version of who you already are, but to discover what's actually possible when you stop running on autopilot, when you take your breath off of survival mode and start building and creating. The flywheel we talked about today doesn't require perfection. It doesn't require that you have it all figured out. It only requires that you begin, and that you keep beginning, and that each session is another circle outward, each breath taking another turn of the flywheel. I'm going to close out today with a poem by Rainier Marie Rilke, an Austrian poet, from his book, The Book of Hours. It's been in my head since we started this series, but I'm actually going to read another quote by him before we get to the poem. And one of his best quotes is, "If your daily life seems poor, do not blame life. Blame yourself. Tell yourself that you are not poet enough to call forth its riches. For to the Creator there is no poverty and no poor indifferent place. It is spring again. The earth is like a child that knows poems by heart." And with that, we will go back to Renee Wilke's poem, Widening Circles. I live my life in widening circles that reach out across the world. I may not complete this last one, but I give myself to it. I circle around God, around the primordial tower. I have been circling for thousands of years, and I still don't know. Am I a falcon, a storm, or a great song? And that was Widening Circles by Rainier Marie Rilke. That's the practice. Not arriving, but circling, widening, giving yourself to it, even when you don't know what it is you're making yourself into. Because how you breathe is how you live. Take a slow, full breath